What's up? What's up, my financially intentional people? Well, I have the honor of bringing you Augustus Christensen here from a ShareScoops, a startup that he is a founder of. So we got a startup founder here, super smart, super innovative, but very humble background. So I really want to welcome you on the Financially Intentional Podcast, Augustus, and would love to hear your story. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Yes, this is my only second podcast here, so I'll try and do my best. I've been told I can be verbose, so just feel free to cut me off at any point. But I'm happy to jump. I can start with my background. I come from a small town landscaping family from a town called North Branford, most well known for our annual potato and corn festival.
Nice.
And it's great. There's a lot of ways you can cook a potato. And so I grew up, understanding the challenges of a small business, literally based out of our house. I woke up to the sound of, shovels and hitting the trucks, and, understanding what can happen to a family in a recession, and, then earned some scholarships to some great schools, but also had to take out, crazy amounts of debt, right? And work multiple jobs. I think I'm pretty sure the most jobs I had at one point was 5 at one point during school. Yeah, not all of them were paid, which is why I had to take so many.
Yes, I remember those days.
Exactly. So, and then I got into finance really in college, working for entirely student-run credit union, from teller to CEO, multi-million-dollar institution, which was such a huge opportunity. And then I was focused a lot on our financial literacy program, really helping students understand credit cards, debit cards, those kinds of things. That sparked for me really, how do I make this stuff more accessible? And then got a job on Wall Street at JP Morgan, a lot because I wanted to understand this stuff, but also because I needed to pay down those student loans. And, worked at JP Morgan then for 8 years. I was a portfolio manager, which means, I was mostly working with nonprofits, endowments, foundations. They have a big pool of money, right? And they need somebody to oversee it. They would hire me, and it would be my job to understand what's happening across every economy, across the world, every market, every type of asset, stocks, bonds, private investments, hedge funds, real estate, all of it. Had to understand how it all fits together and how to trade billion-dollar portfolios to make sure that we're not losing money. And then, so that was my career up until I started ShareScoops.
So before you started working for this credit union, which is amazing to me, it was so entirely cool. Like student run. Like, what was your background, like personally, with finance?
Almost nothing. I mean, my mom been, okay, pretty good. I mean, she's brilliant. So she, figured stuff out like, most smart moms do, right? My dad did not go to college, does not have a background in finance, grew up, his mom, like struggled a lot, in terms of, financially. So they really understood financial insecurity. For me, I didn't know much about it, but I think I started buying my first stock for my grandma told me to buy stock in college in 2012. My first stock was Facebook. It was actually a great trade. It was Facebook right after they IPO'd, now that I think about it. But I did not buy or invest again until really 2 years after I was working on Wall Street, which is what I talk about a lot. Like, I didn't understand how to roll over the difference between an IRA until I was managing $100 million portfolios, right? Like, I still had to figure that stuff out on my own. I was getting paid for my investment advice, but I wasn't dealing with, personal financial issues, right? And that is the stuff that's so complicated. The taxes, the different account structures, all of those things that we have to make decisions on every day that no one teaches you. And I, just like most people, have had to figure this out on my own. And
And
that has
that's
been the hard
crazy
part.
because you're
Yeah.
managing millions of dollars for these organizations, but people don't understand. First of all, a finance degree does not teach you personal finances.
Oh,
And just because you work in financial institutions doesn't mean that you understand personal finance.
right.
And so these are things that aren't widely taught. So people can easily like downplay your experience and be like, well, he works in finance. Of course, he would know these things, but they're totally different when they apply to your personal finances.
Yeah.
So, I love that you sharing your background and how you have to deal with financial insecurity. I mean, like a landscaping business, you know, if you're going through a recession, that's one of the luxuries most people cut, right? And so you kind of have to adjust around that. And so you got to experience that firsthand. But then to come into like this financial world where you're like handling all this money, like was there an adjustment that you had to make in order to like understand that difference for yourself personally?
That's really interesting, thought. I think psychologically there was a lot that went through my mind through this career. One, that I
Hmm.
felt almost like, constantly, shouldn't be here, shouldn't be
Hmm.
in these rooms. But, that also, those people think about money in such a different way, right? It
Yes.
is, for me, it was, I've never been someone who, was drawn to money for money's sake. My
Hmm.
parents never just had that, value for stuff or, acquiring money. I never had this love. And that's why, I think I became a really great portfolio manager is because I was able to disassociate with, the numbers a little bit more,
Hmm.
right? That I was less emotionally attached to it. I could just think analytically, analyze probabilities really well and say, these are the logical, rational decisions to make because the emotional decisions are typically the ones that get you into trouble with your
Hmm.
investments. And so for me, that I think was, the biggest learning process. But otherwise, outside of that, from a personal perspective, I was, from this time I was there, really working on ShareScoops in theory, right? Because I
Hmm.
was focused on this problem. And, it goes by a lot of different names. And it might be financial literacy, but financial literacy people often think about like budgeting and savings, right? Thinking about that like very basic personal finance stuff. But for me, the problem was bigger than that, that I talk a lot about economic literacy. Like
Mm.
what didn't make sense to me is why my smartest, most intelligent, most well-informed friends would still actively disengage from having any kind of opinion on anything financial, right? I would literally be
Mm.
a 27-year-old sitting across the table from a billionaire. I would talk to them about, stock market and they'd clam up, right? Like they wouldn't, like these are titans of industry who have built businesses that worth billions of dollars that still feel like they don't know about, like, have an opinion about the stock market because the entire financial world has created this barrier and these psychological feelings that we all feel like this stuff isn't for us. Like we shouldn't know anything about it. It's way too complicated for us. And we can't even, there's not really anywhere to start. And that
Hmm.
I found is mostly psychological. This stuff, once you're into it, it's not a problem of like the actual concepts or the actions that you need to take that are being difficult. It's just the way that the information is presented and just our, hesitation towards action and not being able to
Hmm.
have any kind of context, right?
Hmm.
Do I take out a mortgage, variable rate mortgage or a fixed rate mortgage to buy a home is a very difficult decision to make without
Mm-hmm.
any context of understanding whether, real estate prices are up or down, or why they go up or down at all, or where we are in the economy or the recession, or, is this booming? How do mortgage rates work? Why do rates go up? Why do they go down? So trying to make any decision without context is very difficult. But for us, every single financial decision we have to make with almost no context. It's a multi-hour research project just to kind of figure out how to make this life-changing decision. And that was what got me onto ShareScoops, was how can I create an experience where it's easier for people to engage with this more regularly, right? More
Mm-hmm.
incrementally each day. How can I show people the storyline of the economy, right? Each little day, so that the stock market being up or down is not so scary. When you only see the Dow down 300, 500 points, well, it's actually not that much in a day, right? Yeah, but they make it, with all the red graphics, it's going to look scary. But if you can see that it goes up and it goes down every day, then, oh, okay, it's not quite as scary. And if you can understand, why it goes up and down, you can say, oh, this might be a good time. I'm a little bit more comfortable trying to invest. And the same thing works with companies, right? A stock price is just the quantification of a company's story arc. So if you can know its story, you understand why the stock is going up or down over time. And it's easier to get a grasp on it than it being this, number that just goes up and down. So we started talking about the economy, companies in a way that people can relate to and feel passionately about, right? How are they affecting their employees, their communities, the planet, and things that people can then have an opinion on. And I found that if I can just get people to have an opinion, I like this company or I don't, it gets them over that psychological barrier that, this stuff isn't for me, and can get them on the on-ramp towards some level of financial activity.
I love that. I love that. And thank you for sharing like the origins of ShareScoop and what you guys do, because I think accessibility is important. And I think so many people make financial decisions like, oh, whether I should take out a fixed or a variable rate mortgage based off of people that don't have financial expertise because of the intimidation factor of trying to learn it on their own. And I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping in finance, intentional or non-intentional, where people just don't know how to access information that is actually consumable at a level that most people can understand. Like, these concepts do not have to be hard. Like you said, if you can get somebody interested in learning about a company, you can kind of get them to understand those financial concepts. And I think like this thing that we do by talking about money taboo, and by making or overcomplicating financial concepts to, like I really think it's intentional keep certain people out of conversations.
Yeah.
I think is something that you're aiming to change. And I think that what you're doing with ShareScoops is phenomenal as far as you call it, financial activism, as far as putting information in front of people in a digestible way so they can make informed decisions about their personal finance. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a battle, and we're building, and now we're catching a lot of momentum, which is exciting. Mm-hmm. To your point, the financial activism, I think, can be taken a lot of ways, but the main key is that we're trying to help empower people to understand what they can do. Right. Yeah. What the impact of their decisions, not only for themselves, for their future, to build wealth, to build stability, but to build a better career, but also how that can affect society, companies, the future, our planet, in ways that align with our individual values. We have a say in what we're doing, because a lot of it is intentional, right? In the gatekeeping of the financial information, because the two main, revenue models for the financial world are advice and transactions, right? So if you don't need to pay for my advice, that's one revenue stream down. And then transactions. So if I'm, talking about, I'm trying to get you to trade more. Here's my next idea, right? Here's this next product or investment. So something as simple as, buying the S&P 500 index fund and automating $10 into that every week puts the financial world out of business, basically, right? And so, and that applies to so many things. You talk about the mortgages. One, we're forced to either, because we're hesitant and lack confidence, to go to people that we shouldn't be listening to. But otherwise, the majority of these decisions, we have to get advice from the people who are benefiting from our action regardless of the outcome, right?
Yes.
You need to take out, you're trying to buy a car. Should I take out a loan? You're asking the, auto dealer. You need to buy a home. Is it a good time to buy a home? You're asking your realtor who makes money regardless, right? You need to, start to invest. Should I be buying this investment product? You're going to pay a financial advisor who then is making money off of you either way, right? Should I be saving? All of these things, we are being guided by the people who are making money regardless of the outcome. So what we're trying to do is make this whole world, these resources, the news, the tools accessible so that people have this resource and this power at their fingertips to actually take action in a way that benefits them.
So walk us through the ShareScoops platform. Like, how can your everyday consumer access ShareScoops and benefit from it?
Awesome. So right now we are still in our closed beta, which means we have a small group of users who are using our app, giving us feedback so we can tweak the last final things to make sure it's really great experience, giving people the right background and the onboarding, all of that awesome stuff. And we're targeting to release that, and we're starting to add more people each week, each month, and we'll hope to be releasing the app publicly very soon. But right now you can also get what's our initial experience that's helped us, reach a community of over 50,000 people through our website at ShareScoops.com. Sign up for our newsletter where you get our high-level daily economic bites, our weekend, deep dives into bigger questions about, what's happening in the economy, how corporations are impacting our lives, and how do we make smart, money decisions. And then within our daily newsletter, you also get a brief look into our early app, which was you can open up, see individual company news scoops that we're sharing, and you get to vote on them and react. And that voting is a key thing that we have been building, because not only do we want you to be able to have an impact with your dollars and your work decisions, but also with your voice. We're trying to create a daily feedback loop where we can put consumers, your average person, get them a voice in the boardroom of these companies and create a more democratic process here where we can create that level of feedback. So our voting, within our app, what we're excited to be launching is now basically like a news app with company profiles on every single public company, so you can look up and understand not only how do they make money in simple terms, but what are their emissions? What is their board diversity? How do they treat their workers? What is their waste? And then importantly, how do all your peers feel about this company? How have they rated it and voted on this company the whole time, so that you can make informed decisions whether you want to work there, shop there, invest there. And then we're curating daily pieces of news that are much simpler, that you get to vote on and stay in touch with what's happening. And all combined with that, we gamify everything with financial education tools that, right there at your fingertips, right? So, that quick access little toolbox of, I need to open an investment account. Let me scroll through a few images in a video and feel like I know what I'm about to do. And then we've pulled together, I think I've signed up for, literally countless financial services at this time to test everything out.
Test everything.
I did a whole video of my debit cards are raining down, because I think I have 30 something debit cards now. Don't worry, not credit cards. Don't open that many credit cards. But we've tested all these services and found partners that we really, really trust. right? And trying to narrow it down, because overall, over and over again, it's, I guess, like, you've helped me start to invest. Where do I do it? And what do you
Mm-hmm.
recommend? So we're trying to make sure that that action step, whether it's a budgeting app or credit builder or investment platform, is right there at your fingertips. And now we're doing some cool things with like micro philanthropy apps and, some carbon offsetting apps and those kinds of things. So we've got some exciting stuff going. And I think the last exciting thing about our app, if you can't tell, we put a lot of work into this, is that we have some partnerships now where our users, everything that you're doing in the app, reading, voting, sharing, all of these things that help you engage with the economy, build your financial confidence, and subtly teach you how to be like an investor, earn you points that you'll soon be able to convert at our partners for cash in a savings account, an investment account, and to spend at over 200 different brands from Amazon to Uber, Marriott, Southwest, so that our users will literally earn money just for reading the news and having an opinion about it. So like, talk about financial equality. Like, we're really trying to make this accessible, and not only accessible, but valuable for people.
I love everything that you're saying. And this is like super exciting. And I also know that, as a startup, and about to go public with your app, you also have the opportunity for people to invest in your platform as well for very little money. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is something that's been, part of my, goal for a while, because we're about financial accessibility, right? And this aligns really well with our mission. So the way that startups work and startups funding is typically to invest in a private company, because it's riskier, right? It's not something you can trade in and out of like a stock on the stock market. It's something that, a lot of private businesses fail, and it's something that carries a lot more risk. So the way that regulators handle that is only what's called accredited investors are allowed to invest in
Mm-hmm.
private companies. And that is
Mm-hmm.
typically, the ultra wealthy. You have to hit wealth benchmarks, or professional investors, you have to have a certain level of certifications or be a full, investing institution. So it makes it startup investing inaccessible to most people. So we're working with a platform called Republic that allows us to open a portion of the round that we're also in, raising money from venture investors, angel investors. But this allows us for the next, I think, 40 days for anyone in our community and our users to invest in our company and actually be an owner, ShareScoops, and take part in our growth for as low as $100 bite size. So really excited to be able to bring our users and community along with us.
That is super exciting. But one other thing I wanted to touch on that you were sharing is that voting aspect and getting people used to voting and sharing their voices and having an active say is something that even I have been guilty of, like owning shares in companies, but not using my voting power to make decisions. So oftentimes these decisions aren't made by people that represent us or represent our values.
Right.
And so our values get under addressed or are brushed under the rug. And I feel like that's a form of financial activism in itself, is using your voice, because even if you do own an S&P 500 index fund, you will have shares in Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Google, all these places where you have voting power, that you can go to these meetings or attend these meetings and have a vote to say, like, no, we don't believe in this.
Right.
We don't want you to do this. Actively use your voice to control what's going on in society. So I love that that's built into your app, and that's something that you're normalizing for people, because I just don't think people understand that they have that power.
Absolutely. That is the biggest thing that we're trying to push. Like I said, it's,
Yeah.
it was fundamentally based in this, financial behavioral finance aspect to just get people to engage, and then they comprehend this process a lot more quickly. But then we realized, let's try and get people to listen to this. And now we are working on partnerships with press release firms. We've got public companies that are on our wait list to actually use our insights and be able to respond directly and hear directly. And what we're focused on is making sure that, one, we're super transparent in everything that we're doing here, that this is not, trying to give the company something that they, another insight into what we're doing, because we don't need that anymore. But to create this feedback where you could see on, right now, if you pull up a Wall Street Journal article, you see the stock price move in there in a little widget. We'd love to be able to say, like, this is how people are reacting across these different factors from their overall people, planet, product, so that people can vote and actually show we don't like what's happening. And that's what we're working on, is because what you're talking about is called proxy voting. If you're a shareholder in a particular company and you own an individual direct share, you can have a vote in their annual proxy report, the annual proxy vote, which is every year there's going to be different proposals, how much you pay the CEO, whether there's new board members, if they're, if you want to approve a merger or something like that. You actually have a say as a shareholder. But it's hard to have an effect with that scale because, one, many of us own our investments through funds. And with a fund, you don't necessarily get that vote. Some of them are changing their rules, but, if you're investing through Vanguard or, iShares or Spider, right? S&P, these companies own your vote. Fidelity, right? So there are really like 4 companies that control most of the votes of every annual meeting for every public company. They're like the biggest shareholders in every company. And so it's really them who is deciding what happens. And that's why some of these, like BlackRock, have had a lot of pressure on, the sustainability, the ESG side, if you're familiar with that stuff, these different initiatives, because where they vote matters and decides basically everything. But what we're trying to do is pull that a step back from the tough logistics of how do I even submit a vote on my proxy, right? Like, I know I've been getting the emails from, my various different investment platforms, but I haven't been good about proxy voting individually. So what we're doing is taking this a step back, because it's not all about individual shareholders. Stakeholders are really important here too, which means anybody who is has a stake in the outcome of this company. And that means employees, that means customers, the communities in which these companies operate, our planet, are all stakeholders that should, the planet probably can't speak up. I mean, I might be doing a good job. We're hearing from the planet a lot more lately. So
tell me about it.
But that's the point, is that we're trying to give everybody a vote. And then we can create this feedback loop where they hear, oh, we don't like this, we don't do like this. And our next step is to be able to have companies actually contribute to their profiles and write their own scoops, communicate directly to our audience, get that poll-based feedback from them, and understand, oh, great, we made our product more sustainable, or we changed this policy to improve the financial well-being of our workers. Awesome. 80% of people loved it, improved our overall brand by 2%, our people score by 5%, and drove 10,000 applications to our talent page. And now that company has a measurable brand and business opportunity that says, oh, cool, investing in our workers has a measurable good outcome for us. We should maybe do this more. Okay, cool. So that's the kind of thing that we're building towards with this, is to be able to actually give our users and their votes a voice directly pipelined into these individual companies.
I love it. I love it. And thank you for politely correcting me because, like I think that those proxy votes are, I mean, I still get them, but it's important to know like where the power still really stands and who has a voice at the table. And so
Some of them
like
you do
it's
vote
like
though, not to correct. Yeah,
yeah,
some
yeah,
of them you do
exactly.
vote. Some of them they listen to you
Right.
and then say they try and vote, in accordance to their shareholders as well, from the different funds, but it can vary and it's tough.
But I like that ShareScoops is like, all right, you got this table, but we're pulling up our own table that has a voice and value, and what we're saying collectively can make an impact, and we matter. And so I like that you guys are just like, no, we're changing the game.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're gonna listen to us, and this is the voice of the people. So I think that's incredibly dope. So I know that you have the ShareScoops, ShareScoops.com. You have your newsletter. You have your ShareScoops social media pages. You want to share those?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at ShareScoops Instagram. It's where we have our biggest community, also on LinkedIn. And, we're doing our best on TikTok, but I just have not mastered those videos just yet. I don't know. I do like to dance, but I have not done it on the videos yet.
I want to see that, Augustus. So I just know that you have some very exciting things coming up in the very near future. 45 days out is not a lot of time.
Quick.
So that's exciting. And so just if people want to keep in touch with you, and keep in touch, like stay up to date right now and figure out what's going on right now, what's the best way for them to learn more about ShareScoops?
Go to sharescoops.com, and there you can see a link to our fundraising page if you'd like to participate in our investment round. But then you can also sign up for our newsletter / app waitlist right there, and then all of our social links are there as well.
Yes, I love all the information that you've shared. Like I said, you are changing the game. You are bringing accessibility to personal finance and economics, which can be super overwhelming for people to understand. So I love what you're doing out there. That's why I wanted to have you on the platform, because I see the value and I can see how so many people can benefit from it. And I just wanted to thank you for making finance more accessible to the people.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I do really appreciate that. So, we're working to try and do this for people every day. So every additional person we can help means a lot to all of us. So yeah, thank you so much for having me here. This is a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. And I feel honored to say that, I've been there from the beginning.
Absolutely.
So when you blow up, don't forget about the little people.
Never.
All right. Thanks, Augustus.
All right. Thanks so much.